Florence's face and hair are bathed in rain. Standing in a clearing in the forest, she raises her hands high.
Immortal Council, why have you conspired against me?
She has flashbacks.
Saphira! Billy, where did she go?
I don't know, but she took your bow.
He's not just a wizard, he's an Astari.
Enter evil confendor,
Yeah, that doesn't really help me.
It's a mind control spell.
You fool.
Sorry to do this to you guys. I'll be back, Exterminus.
That's the end of her flashbacks. Florence falls to her knees. The rain pours over her. East Hollywood High School presents Paradise High, Episode 17, A Larper's Paradise, Part 2. Of course, it's not really raining. That'd be silly. Florence would totally catch a cold. Florence just imagines that it's raining. LARPing is epic like that. It's actually quite a sunny day. No rain. Florence is on her knees, yelling at the sky.
Why?
Oh, they're chasing me. Where'd you go? Ah!
That's Billy. Florence stops her melodramatic cry party and stealthily moves toward the sound. Meanwhile, Billy runs along the trail with his hands still tied behind him.
No, they're really fast for nerds! Florence! Florence, where are you?
Over here, quick.
Florence has a green tarp over most of her body. She motions for him to get under it with her. They can hear Billy's pursuers just out of sight.
Get him!
Billy joins Florence. She pulls the tarp over both of them.
What are you doing?
Shh! It's a cloak of invisibility.
Two male LARPers come around the corner. They stop.
Where did he go?
The two male LARPers stare right at the tarp covering Billy and Florence. But, in their minds, there's nothing there.
I don't know. Let's go that way.
The two male LARPers run past a clearly visible tarp covering Florence and Billy. Florence pulls the tarp off of them.
I have to find out why Grandaldor is helping them.
Florence and Billy look down at their stomachs. Meanwhile, at Paradise Valley's famous small-town restaurant, Smith wears one of his ugly sweaters. He looks over a menu. Cassie sits across from him, dressed nice in her own Miss Martin sort of way. Her dress really complements her blue and purple hair.
I'll have the strawberry banana pancakes and an orange juice.
The waiter writes her order.
I'll have French toast. Original. Hold the syrup.
He eyes Miss Martin.
And an orange juice.
The waiter writes Smith's order as well, takes their menus and exits. Mr. Smith looks around him, unsure of himself. Then pulls 3x5 cards from his pocket. They're filled with scribbled notes he has written to himself. Avoid her past, ask about siblings, not parents. How did that start? And other conversation tips one finds on the internet.
What's up with the cards?
Mr. Smith fumbles a moment. He puts the cards down.
Nothing.
He quickly glances at one of them.
Do you have any siblings?
Miss Martin smiles awkwardly, but goes along.
Nope, I'm an only child.
Mr. Smith quickly steals a glance at his cards again.
Oh. How did that start?
Miss Martin raises an eyebrow. Back in the LARPing forest, Florence's cloak of invisibility, is strung vertically between two trees, separating the trail from where Billy and Florence sit. Florence pulls small bags of food from her armor. It's normal stuff like PB&J sandwiches, but the bags are labeled with fantastical names like elf bread.
The bread of the elves will sustain a small giant for 3 days.
How do you do it?
Do what?
How do you enjoy this so much when you know it's not real?
Florence looks over. She can tell Billy is feeling something deep.
Are you okay?
Yeah, it's just... I learned my whole life was a lie.
Florence's look invites Billy to say more. Billy is quiet a moment. He looks at Florence, sizing up whether he dare say what's on his mind.
So... I haven't told this to anyone.
What is it?
Florence's eyes say that she is taking this very seriously.
Well, when I was 7... my mom's, that's what I call my mom, vanished. Dad's told me she was abducted by aliens. I dedicated my entire life to getting her back.
Florence is very sad for him.
I've put so much into this, taken the hunt to levels Dad's never even dreamed of. But then, the search ended with an address.
Florence raises an eyebrow.
An address?
Mom's wasn't abducted. She just left, started a new family.
Billy, I'm so sorry.
She obviously wants to say more, but has not the words.
So how do you do it? How do you care about something when you know it's not real? I just want to care about something. Again.
Well, do you know why I got into LARPing? My dad is a bigwig at Channel 17.
Nerd Fantasy Science Channel? Okay, that's awesome. I love UFO Friday. Well, at least I did.
Yeah, I come from a family of nerds. I grew up watching my brothers work at the station, doing cool stuff, like building spaceships and editing footage of elves and trolls. I thought it was so cool. But then, when I was old enough to work there, my dad made me a secretary. He thought that it was the best place for a girl. I began LARPing to prove to my dad that I was just as much of a nerd as my brothers, but he never really noticed.
Billy is sad for Florence now. Florence pulls at the foliage.
So now I LARP to make myself happy.
Florence's eyes light up.
Here in this world, I can do and be whatever I want, within the rules of the game, of course. And that's awesome. That's empowering.
And that's why you created a society without any men around.
Yeah!
They become quiet, each eating and absorbed in their own thoughts.
I'm sorry for anything I ever said about your mother.
Sorry if I ever made fun of your LARPing. It's pretty cool. No way.
Billy gets up and runs toward the sound. Florence follows. At the restaurant, the waiter sets 2 orange juices on the table as Mr. Smith and Miss Martin talk.
Thank you. We spent $18 million keeping people out of this country last year. Think what would happen if we put $18 million into fighting poverty or education. The whole thing's absurd.
Smith tries to listen to her while also glancing at his cards. One card reads "No politics." Mr. Smith has a panicked look.
I'm talking too much. What do you think about immigration?
Smith looks both ways. He's trapped. He looks at his cards. The top one reads, "Tease the location of a second date."
Have you ever been to the ice rink?
Miss Martin stares at Mr. Smith.
Excuse me a moment.
Florence and Billy found the origin of the sound that brought them to this part of the forest. The two Larpers who were pursuing Billy hung upside down, caught in two of Billy's alien traps.
Oh, who knew? They actually work.
Florence is excited. She runs up to one of the captives and yells into his face.
Why is Granaldor helping Exterminus?
We'll never talk.
Billy steps forward.
Let me handle this.
Moments later, the Larpers' shirts are removed. Their arms and chests and mouths are covered in haphazardly placed strips of duct tape.
Ow!
Are you ready to talk?
The captive nods his head. Billy rips the tape off of his mouth. He points to Florence.
Tell her what she wants to know.
Why is Granaldor helping Exterminus?
He walked into camp yesterday and said the Valor commanded him to aid our cause.
He's an Astari. He's supposed to be neutral. Why is he helping Exterminatus?
Exterminus gave Granaldor a special gift.
What was it?
I don't know. $430 and a first edition Cosmic Dragon Magica card.
Florence's eyes narrow. Her entire body tenses with anger. She draws her sword and hits the captive right in the stomach.
Double critical 44.
The captive bows his head and closes his eyes. Florence walks away with the stride of a dark specter of fury.
Florence, what about the other guy?
The other enemy Larper is still trapped, his mouth covered with tape. Florence keeps walking. Billy shrugs to the upside-down Larper.
Sorry. Later, dude.
Billy runs after Florence. Billy catches up with her.
Okay, so what's going on?
Logan's been metagaming.
I'm not catching your drift.
He paid off a neutral character out of game to manipulate what happens in game.
Billy begins to catch on.
It's like the worst thing you can do. Granaldor is an Astari and a mortal servant of the Valor. They're like the gods in Token's universe. As a god-class character, Granaldor isn't supposed to take sides. He's supposed to moderate the story in the LARP world. That's all. But Logan paid him off outside the game to help him.
But that ruins the integrity of the game!
Exactly.
So, are you going to report him or something?
I could if I had proof, but I'd rather just get even.
Billy considers a moment.
I think I have an idea. Explain to me the rules of this whole LARP thing.
Mr. Smith sits alone in the restaurant, looking over his 3x5 cards. One booth over, a sloppily dressed boyfriend talks to his nicely dressed girlfriend.
Did you know there's like 2,000 calories in your skillet? That's how much you're supposed to have in a day, unless you exercise. It's gonna make you fat.
The boyfriend reaches across and takes a bite of his date's skillet.
I did start exercising today.
That's good. Glad to hear you're listening to me for once. Was it the belly dancing video I gave you?
The girlfriend blushes. Mr. Smith watches in silence.
I just went for a jog.
Jogging is good. Oh, and I don't get paid until next week, so we're gonna have to go Dutch on this one.
Smith puts down his 3x5 cards and walks over to the other table. Miss Martin comes back from the bathroom just in time to see Mr. Smith talking to the bad boyfriend.
A gentleman pays for his date's dinner.
Smith pulls out a 20 and hands it to the girl.
That should cover your meal.
Mr. Smith turns and sees that Miss Martin was watching. She smiles. She's impressed. She motions with her head toward the door.
Come on, let's get out of here.
Mr. Smith looks from her to their table.
But we ordered and we and haven't paid yet.
Come on, live a little.
Mr. Smith considers his options. Pay for food or live. Do what's expected or go with Cassie. This moment feels like eternity. Mr. Smith follows Miss Martin to the door and they exit together. His 3x5 cards remain at their table. To be continued. This episode was brought to you by Max Diner, Hungry Have a Pickle, and by 3x5 cards invented by Carl Linnaeus in 1760, now available in office supply stores everywhere. On the next episode of Paradise High. Okay, so I know there's a lot going on. The school's annual undead-themed musical. Lindsay told Harker to forgive him 6 hours and annual undead-themed musical was going on in less than 6 hours ago. Harker said it by Lindsay. So, all of that and more in A Larper's Paradise, Part 3.